So it was really scary at the time, and I jumped in and we did it, and I couldn't be happier. It's a fantastic property. And it's in an awesome area, and just every time we go up there, we have great memories, great experiences. And not only that, the people that go there and use it love it too.
Hi, I'm Wyatt. And I'm Grace. And you're listening to Our Dad and your host of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Shawn Moore, and we're back with my favorite episodes every week. We end the week with interviews with short-term rental investors, and today we've got Chad Gresick joining us. And Chad, I really appreciate this. I always tell you before we hit play, we're just going to have a conversation, let other people listen in about the journey into the short-term rental game. So I appreciate you joining me today. Thanks,
Shawn. I appreciate the opportunity, and looking forward to chatting here.
Awesome. Well, listen, Chad, I love to always just start. We're going to talk about, the good, the bad, the ugly. Nothing's off limits as we talk about. We think that there's a lot of lessons in the success stories, but also lessons in the challenges to get there. And so we're going to talk a lot about that. But to start off, I always like to just start with the background. Where are you from? What pays the bills? And what got us interested ultimately into real estate investing and short-term rentals in particular?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my background's probably pretty boring. Standard, typical guy. I've got a wife, 2 kids, 2 dogs. I live down here in South Florida. Been employed with the same job for 18 years now. And I think what happened with me was pretty typical with a lot of people when we started to go through COVID. A lot of introspection, a lot of self-reflection, and a lot of time to do that. And, ultimately I was just spending a lot of time looking at ways that I could, kind of enhance my experience, my background, and my financial situation, obviously. And, your program jumped right out. The whole idea of lifestyle assets, the whole idea of, getting a property, being able to use that property and having others to pay the bills. I mean, it just really was checking all the boxes as far as what I wanted to look into and what I wanted to do. And I'm happy I did it. I joined your program in the summer of 2022, bought my first property in the fall of 2022, and been going crazy ever since in a good way.
Awesome. In a good way. That's good. It's awesome. And it's funny how, that was a time period that a lot of us had some time to think about really, where we were at, what we were doing and where we wanted to go. And it was kind of one of those periods that spurred a lot of people into the game, particularly into the short-term rental game, right? And so during that time, there's a lot of people jumping in. Obviously, down in the South Florida area, you guys are, that was a hot spot in the country. And so let's take me through, kind of walking through exactly how you decided. My philosophy is, hey, where would you like to own a vacation home? Like, let's start there. Is that the road you took, or did you, is that how we started, or how we select the location that we ended up in?
Yeah. I mean, so, I did the whole looking at the various markets and look at the numbers, doing the air DNA, looking at, all that, and ultimately came down to, where do I want to be? What do I want to go with my family, my parents, have an experience for a legacy, right? Not just my kids, their kids. And we ended up going to a place called Fort White, Florida, which is in North Florida. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but it's outside of Gainesville, about an hour. And there's all sorts of natural springs in that area. And we just went up there and we loved it. We had such a great time. And every time we came home, we were like, wow, can't wait to get back. And that really was like, okay, well, maybe I need to start thinking about this as a potential location. And it's not a great market. It's, it's a decent market. I reached out to a realtor. She said, hey, this property is perfect for what you're looking for. It was on a river, multiple acres, just really natural, really, great setting. And, what happened was it was on the market for like hours. So, it was more than I wanted to spend. It was more than I wanted to invest. And actually what happened was the deal fell through. My realtor actually happened to know their realtor pretty well. So she said, hey, this is back on the market. It's full price. You can get it. So it was really scary at the time, and I jumped in and we did it, and I couldn't be happier. It's a fantastic property. And it's in an awesome area, and just every time we go up there, we have great memories, great experiences. And not only that, the people that go there and use it love it too. And that makes me happy that, folks are using that property, making their own memories, hopefully coming back, right? And telling their friends. So that's really been a cool part of this, Shawn, to be honest. The whole experience, obviously paying the bills and all that's very important. But just the fact that you're making, an impact on people's lives is pretty cool.
Yeah, we hear that so often, and I love hearing that. It's what keeps a lot of us excited about continuing in the game of short-term rentals is obviously, like you said, paying the bills is a big deal. Being able to, make a little bit of money on the side and being able to build that life that we want, right? And that financial freedom with real estate. But also along with that is we can be a small part of a lot of people's really, big moments in their lives. We have people that come for, engagements and honeymoons, and we have people that come in to mourn their, in certain areas. We were on the last episode, I was just talking to one of our members, they have a property and they've got people that come in for funerals and they're part of these experiences for people, and they can be a small part of really elevating that experience. It's really fun, right? It's a lot of times when we get into this game, we don't really think too much about that, but it's amazing how often that comes up in these conversations that we have every Friday on the podcast. That's a major part of the fulfillment of being involved in the short-term rental game. And it's often probably not something you think about in the very beginning, right? When you're getting into it, it's not something you're really given a lot of consideration to.
No, and again, going back to your program, that's one of the first steps, right? Why are you doing this? What's your why? Yeah. And you're right. This is not one of them that I was thinking about, but it ultimately is. It's helping other people and enjoy their vacation, which is really cool.
It's really fun. So go back. I want to rewind. You said this wasn't a very good market. Like when you said that, what do you mean by that? Let's walk people through when you're saying, hey, okay, we kind of selected this market. It didn't look like a great market. In what aspect when you say that?
Yeah, so I mean, it's sort of off the beaten path, right? Gainesville is a very hot market. Gainesville is a really strong market from a financial perspective. This area is really not, like I said, it's off the beaten path. Not a lot of people know about it. People know about the Springs and that kind of thing, but they don't know of the specific area. And what I was able to do, and this is sort of a niche approach that I'm taking, is, hey, I'm not going to go after the big markets, right? Because, there's a lot of competition. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. What if I find some of these niche markets and be the top performer in them and drive the market, create the market? And essentially that's what I've done with Camp Manatee. It's really leading the market right now. Obviously, there's a lot more I could do to even expand further. So I'm being really deliberate about that process. I want to make sure that my approach is organic and sustainable. So it's been really cool to see, just really the market grow essentially with my property. That's sort of where I'm going with it. It's not, if you look at the Air DNA scores, it's not an 80, it's not a 90. I think right now, if you look at it, it's like a 34. So a lot of people are looking at that and like, oh, I'm not going to invest in that market. But if you're a number one performer in a 34 market, maybe that's a different situation, right?
Right. And that's why I wanted to go back to that point is a lot of people think you have to be in these really high demand markets, right? And there's a lot, like you obviously ran the numbers. You obviously knew there was money being spent in that market, although it was not as much money as like a Gainesville market or something, but there's also nowhere near the competition. It was going to be, it's never easy. I don't want to say it was going to be easier for you to go be the number one property in that market. It's never easy to be the number one property in any market, period. But it was, you could really set the high water mark in that market because nobody else was really doing it. And you were going to be very intentional about it and take the necessary steps. And I like to go back to that because I tell people all the time, we run our own underwriting, and underwriting is important. You had to know that there's money being spent. You had to understand, what to expect revenue wise. There's going to be some sort of expectation of revenue. And then exactly how much you're paying for the property and putting that together and saying, okay, is there potential for me to make money? That's important still, right? But it doesn't mean that the only places you can make money are these well-known resort areas. Some of I always call them backyard resort areas, where not a lot of people know about them. They're kind of regionally known. They've got a good profit driver, like you said, with the springs and the water and the wildlife and everything that this property has to offer. But it's okay that it's just the, kind of the little region around that knows and visits it. And then all of a sudden you go create this great experience in that market. These backyard resort markets they're some of the best opportunities across the country. Can they continue to be? Because one, short-term rentals are really preferred way to an accommodation for travelers and a preferred way to go visit these areas. These areas don't typically have any hotels that you're competing against, and they, this is the only option, and it opens it up to other people to come experience that. You know what the profit drivers are, and sometimes, like you said, you're a big part when you have a really great property in these smaller markets. You're a big part of raising the bar and bringing people to this area, frankly. Right. And we see this and hear this all the time. And I love that you brought that point up of saying, well, it didn't look like a great market, on a score of 0 to 100, it's a 34. And a lot of people are just going to ignore it. But you understood how to peel back the layers of the onion, look at the actual potential, understand what you've got, and be able to go in there and say, yes, we're going to capitalize on this in this type of a market.
Yeah, no. And I mean, I think my original underwriting estimates for revenue were like 65 grand. Which, would have put me about break even, which I was okay with the first couple of years. But in reality, my first year, I think we did 80,000. And this year we're on track to do 100. I mean, it's blown me away in regards to the response. And the other thing that I love about this, Shawn, is the local economy benefits. When I look at, when I look at the people that I'm bringing to this area, they're going to go shop for food. They're going to, use the amenities. They're going to use the restaurants. I'm paying a cleaner. I'm paying a management person to go out there. So, and this is an area where, a lot of people don't make a lot of money. So, that really makes me feel pretty good too.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I love that we're talking about that right now, because I think it's a conversation that's not had often enough. And it's really fun to have, like you said, one property that really is making an impact on these local economies, these smaller, backyard resort areas, these little small towns. And you have one or two properties that are bringing in multiple people, on a regular basis. One, you're employing, like you said, the cleaners, the maintenance stuff, and all that. But also, you're helping those local businesses. A lot of those small towns, they don't even have the population sometimes to support the little restaurants and the little things that, on the main streets and the little shops. And you bring in these extra people, and this becomes a little bit more of a destination. All of a sudden, all of those people benefit from that. And it's really fun to see. We had there was an article, I live in Utah, and there was an article in one of our local news stations did an article and saying, are short-term rentals good or bad? And overwhelmingly, the small towns said, please don't shut them down. They were interviewing restaurant owners, business owners in a lot of these small towns, because Utah's, tourism's huge in Utah. And they would go and they were, a lot of times the big cities, they're saying, no, we don't want them, whatever. But the small towns, they really, really like them, because they're saying, listen, it's really hard, but, we have a really small population. And people don't make a ton of money. They can't go out to eat all the time. And so when other people are coming in and visiting our areas, we rely on that. We rely on the tourism to keep our doors open. And I think that conversation, like these small town businesses really get nervous when you hear about regulation shutting down short-term rentals. And that's what this article was this reporter was trying to put together with this story, and kind of getting both sides of it. But overwhelmingly, the small town businesses are saying, please don't shut them down. We really, really need them. And it sounds like you notice that when you invest in some of these areas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then of course, what comes with that is when the market starts coming up, obviously other folks catch notice. And so competition has started to increase, but competition's good. I'm okay with that. Obviously it keeps you sharp. Like the analogy that you always use with the axe behind your head. You got to keep that axe sharp. So competition's a good thing.
competition is absolutely a good thing. It helps us all continue to raise the bar, not sit on our, sit on where we're at and get comfortable with where we're at. And you're exactly right. It's a good thing to see other people coming in. It helps the economy even more. And ultimately these areas are, and it's fun because you've got, when you set the bar and it's not setting the baseline right now, you're setting the high water mark. That's really exciting to be a part of that. We've done that in a couple markets ourselves. And I know how exciting that is to, when you're underwriting and saying, we need to be about 60,000 to break even. And this year you're going to be closer to 100. That's almost 100% over what you were anticipating worked in that market. But it was hard to underwrite that because it wasn't there. Nobody else was doing that. Right. And you guys came in with Camp Manatee and really created an amazing experience. So let's talk a little bit about that. Tell me a little bit about the property. All of you guys listening, that we always post the properties in the show notes, so you can go check this out. I always say success leaves clues, so you can kind of go reverse engineer. But walk me through the process of, because this is not on the beaches, right? But there's a lot of really cool stuff around. There's water around. There's lots of wildlife. So walk me through kind of what kind of an experience we put together for our guests.
Yeah, so Camp Manatee is located on about a 4-acre parcel. We're located on the Santa Fe River, which is part of the Three Rivers community area. So there's the Itchituckney River, which is a spring-fed river, which is crystal clear blue all year round. It's the most magnificent thing you'll ever see. And then we have the historic Swanee River, which also connects. So we have a dock. We have our house is elevated 30 feet in the air. So we're still home because obviously we're on the river. We do offer kayaks to our guests free of charge. We have a hot tub, and we're literally within 30 minutes of probably 30 to 40 springs that you can go visit either by kayak, by boat, or by car. So it's a really unique area. We're also about 50 minutes from Gainesville. So if you want to go catch a game, go into the campus, you can do that as well. And like I said, Shawn, it's just a really cool, laid back, natural type experience. Right across the river, there's a 6,000 acre preserve so the wildlife that you see out there is second to none. We get manatees, obviously, we're known Camp Manatee. We see manatees in the river, typically in the colder months. We get a lot of people that want to come look for the manatees and that kind of thing. Fishing, hiking, you name it. It's just every time we go, there's more to do. We find more things to do, which is pretty cool because, we've been going up there now, we go up there probably 6 times a year, a couple of years now. And we're still finding new things to do. So that's really it's just awesome. It's just kind of a non-stop, experience. So,
yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. And I love just looking through your pictures and just being on the river and just that outdoor experience it's awesome, right? You really get to immerse yourself into the outdoors and that, for me, it's a total different outdoors, right? Because I'm out west and I would love to just go experience, because a lot of times you think Florida, you're thinking beaches and everything else. You've got the river life there, and which brings a lot of different, and like this time of year, it sounds like, as things cool down, the manatees will start coming up the river because it's a little warmer water with the springs, and price stays pretty constant most of the year with all those springs. And, I love it. I love the experience we put together. And also, like you said, you're not too far from Gainesville. I mean, if somebody does want to get into the bigger city and go watch a game and, be a part of that, they can be. What are some of the, when we talk about backyard resort communities, right? And these types of where are they coming from? Usually, I always say a couple hours from major metro areas is who really knows about these markets. But have you identified where most of your target audience is coming from?
Yeah, so it's interesting, when people come to Florida, they go to the beaches, they go to Disney, but where do Floridians go, right? Yeah. Where do Floridians go to vacation? Typically, they go to the Keys or they come up to places like this. So we get a tremendous amount of folks. We're really close to Jacksonville, and Jacksonville is one of the fastest growing cities in Florida. We're relatively close to Tampa. We do get a good number of folks coming up from Orlando and South Florida. We do get some Georgia, guests as well. And we've had some international folks. We've had a gentleman from South Africa, believe it or not, stay at our place. So I would say mostly Florida, but a close second would be Georgia. But yeah, I mean, we're getting a lot of just residents that in Florida that are looking for a different experience other than going to the beach or going to Disney, and we absolutely offer that for sure.
Yeah, love it, and that's what I would assume. Like you said, they've got access. You guys that live down there, you have access to sunshine beaches and Disney all the time, right? And you're like, okay, what's something different that we can do? And this is absolutely something different that you can do in Florida. So I would assume you're getting a lot of local Floridians and really enjoying the space. So as you set it up, take me through any challenges, anything that we really had to deal with, overcome, and that we were like, man, that was a time frame that we were like, I'm glad we could fast forward past that.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately in Florida we deal with hurricanes, right? So this area historically hadn't been hit with a lot of hurricanes. Unfortunately, since I've owned, we've been hit by 4 hurricanes, right? And most recently, Helene. Came in about 50 miles to the west of us. The house is built very, very well. And going back to one of the things that you always promote is find quality assets, right? Find quality properties. And that resonated in the back of my head. I've been in real estate before, and that was always something that I had a knack for, is finding good quality property. So, the house has got a good roof. It's built well. It's built strong. So knock on wood, we haven't had any issues other than some trees down. So, I mean, that's just some bumps in the road. I lost some reservations, obviously. But one thing that I did realize is that, we have a whole house generator. And so we had some folks reaching out to us and saying, hey, look, our other reservation canceled. There's no power. Do you guys have power? And I said, yeah, I got power. Come on in. So we were able to gobble up some reservations because we had an amenity, right, that others didn't have. A full house generator. So, it was kind of interesting that helped us a lot. So, and then we also had the folks doing the cleanup, right? You had all the workers doing the cleanup work that were looking for places to stay. So it actually turned out being a pretty good situation for us. We did very well, all things considered.
Good. I'm glad to hear that. And it's, you guys, that's like a scary time of year every year is hurricane season, right? And just, basically throughout the Southeast, we're like, man, okay, where are they coming through? How are we going to mitigate this? How are we going to, to your point of the cleanup crews coming in, when you have a good quality asset and it's built right, it's built to withstand that. And a lot of those homes down there are, if you're looking at them, but some of them, you can't avoid some of the things that happen to them just based on where the storms come through. But if you end up, like you said, having the amenities like a whole home generator, I would, that's, if I was in one of those areas, I would have that, right? And it's like I have that in 3 of my homes is whole home generators that we have. And I try to put them in every single one of them, especially if they're susceptible to power outages. And in areas like that, it can be a big deal. And you're out of power, your generator kicks on, somebody else doesn't have power, you're able to accommodate the guests that maybe got displaced, or at least your guests don't get displaced. And it's some of those things are amenities that we don't think too much about, right? We think about the hot tubs, the kayaks and pools, all those different things. But, an amenity like a whole home generator can be a big deal at times, especially in areas like this. And it can it can alleviate a lot of headaches for you. And so, and to your point, sometimes you don't have a lot of vacationers coming in. You got cleanup crews coming in, and you're able to pivot, and they're able to still be able to have a space to go and get the work done and make sure that they've got a good experience while they're in there, because they're displaced from their families out there doing the work.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's crazy. It's you think that there's not going to be anything, and you get it. So you gotta have faith. You gotta have faith.
It is. You guys it always makes me nervous down there. You guys always, those hurricanes scare me. I'm out west. We don't deal with hurricanes. And so when I see them coming through, I'm always crossing my fingers and like, okay, I hope everything's all right. Some of you guys that live down there and you're used to it, you're just kind of like, yeah, it is what it is. We deal with it every year. Right.
Yeah. You get numb to it, unfortunately.
Unfortunately. Right. And because they can be hard. Awesome. Chad. So let's, as we kind of go through that process, what are some of the next steps? You said you're kind of thinking about, that because of the success of Camp Manatee in a lesser known market, if you will, that's going to be part of your strategy moving forward. Talk to me a little bit about that and what kind of the plans are moving forward.
Yeah. So, I mean, the big challenge, obviously, in pivoting to getting another property, because that is my plan. I want to have, my goal is to have 10 properties, and I want them to be good properties, right? I want it to be solid, strong properties. I want to do this deliberately. I want to do this sustainably. So it's taking a little bit more time than I would have liked initially. But my plan is to look, I'm actively looking for another property in another market. I am looking somewhere away from hurricanes. Somewhere, I like places on the water.
Right.
That's because again, going back to some of these, markets, you have to differentiate yourself somehow, some way. And water is the ultimate, divider from that perspective, because there's only a certain amount of properties on the water. So I'm always gravitated towards property on the water. Obviously, with that comes some challenges and some concerns, flooding and other issues. So, that's kind of where I'm looking. I'm looking in the mountains, Tennessee, Georgia, with something on the water. So that's one of my target markets. I'd love to be out west where you're at, but, I haven't been out there yet to visit. So, I typically like to at least get a flavor of what an area looks like, make sure, we enjoy it out there, right? Bring the family out. Yeah. Is this a lifestyle asset that we want to have in our portfolio? Is this a place we want to go visit? A couple times a year or whatever. So that's part of the calculus as well. So it's taken some time, but again, I want to do it the right way. I don't want to be in a situation where I'm, struggling financially and so again, it's a sustainable approach that I'm taking, maybe slower than some others. One thing I'm doing to help with the cash flow is I'm actually helping to manage other properties, leveraging some of the experience that I've got to help others and get a win-win there and help build some capital a little bit faster. So, that's an approach I'm taking right now for that.
Love it. And that's a great, that's a something that you can do in those smaller markets as well, because again, you don't have a lot of management people in that. Many times you're kind of forced to be able to, if you pick a really small market, sometimes you have to say, okay, by doing that, I'm kind of forcing myself to have to be involved in the management, self-management. You start to, develop your systems and processes for that. And then all of a sudden that opens up a secondary opportunity with the other people in that market, because they don't have any of those options either. Right. And so you can say, hey, listen, we've got this, put together. Let's plug you into our systems, processes. And, especially with management, there's economies of scale, and that can be another source of income to help you grow. And I love the fact that in kind of the Navy SEAL saying, slow is smooth, smooth is fast. And that's what we're doing, is being very deliberate about how you're going to build this. And, and before you know it, you look back 5-10 years and you say, holy crap, look what we did. Right. And it's, versus just trying to rush in and buy a property because on your goal sheet said, I want one property every single year for 5 years. I always tell people, listen, that's really good. But what if the right properties don't come around? Or what if we're not right in the right position? What if you had to buy, 5 properties over a 7 or 8 year period? It still works, right? Let's just slow her down, make sure it's the right properties for the right situation to meet your property goals. I love that you're taking that deliberate approach to that as well. So,
yeah,
Chad, as we wrap up, go ahead. Sorry.
No, the other thing I was just going to say, Shawn, is, I know, and I'm a fan of full service management as well, and kind of hands off, but I think it's important when you start that you do manage it yourself, that you do understand every bit of what you're doing and what you're asking somebody else to do, because once you know how to do it, you can understand that somebody else is doing it the right way and really know what you're getting into. So I would recommend that. I know ultimately you want to get away from that, but when you're learning, I think it's very important that you understand the property management piece for sure.
Yeah, and I was speaking to Nathan and Christy Harwell, and they bought a management company. They were managing their own properties, and now they actually had a management company that they actually acquired because they were doing so well. But he said my ultimate goal was to your point was I wanted to do it because we have really high expectations, and I wanted to make sure I had a baseline of what I should expect somebody else to do when I hired him to do it. Right. And it was kind of, that's what his point was, is saying, I'm going to learn, I'm going to understand what's reasonable to expect at a really high level, so that when I go have somebody else, ultimately take over my portfolio, I know what that baseline is, and I know what those expectations should be because I did it. And they, and I can speak intelligently to it, which I think is a really good point.
Yep.
Yeah. Awesome, Chad. Well, listen, as we wrap up, first and foremost, thank you for letting us have this conversation publicly and talk about this and share it with other people. These things are I can't tell you how much feedback we get about the conversations we have every Friday with short-term rental investors like yourself. And so I appreciate you first and foremost for coming on and joining us. And at the end of these episodes, I always like to ask you that one final question of, if you could go back and give yourself some advice. You've been doing it for a couple of years now, and we're continuing to look forward to grow this portfolio. As you start to say, okay, now that I've been in it for a minute, now that we've done this, if I could go back in time and give myself some advice, what would that advice be?
Start earlier, man. I mean, what they say about real estate, right, is the best time to buy real estate was 10 years ago. Second best time is today. So don't wait. It's scary, but you got to push yourself. You got to push yourself outside the comfort zone. It's something I tell my kids all the time. You don't change when it's comfortable. You got to push yourself into those uncomfortable zones so that you grow. And that would be the one thing. I mean, if I did this back in my 20s, man, where I'd be today, totally different situation. So don't wait. Try to get going. I know it's scary. I know it's different. Don't get in over your head. Obviously, don't bite off more than you can chew, and follow the program. It works. If you follow the program, it works. It really does.
Love it. And I love the advice. And it's by far and away the number one piece of advice that people give, because it's so true, right? The best time was yesterday. The next best time is right now. And there's never a better time than now to start moving forward. And you're exactly right. You're never, if you're waiting for the right time or you're waiting for all the answers, it's never going to happen, because it's never perfect timing. There's never a perfect property. There's never a perfect market. There's never a perfect time to jump into the market. It's perfect because you make and take the actions now and put yourself in an uncomfortable position of learning something new. That's all the uncomfortableness is learning something new, right? If we knew it all, we'd be doing it all. We all suck at something the very first time we try it, right? And so we have to get out and put ourselves in a position, stack the odds in your favor. Don't bite off more than you can chew. Don't put your back against the wall and just swing for the fence. Like, do it responsibly, but take some action, right? And let's get after it and let's do it. And so I love that advice. And Chad, again, I appreciate you. Those of you that are listening to us, we know how valuable your time is. We appreciate you spending it with us. It means a lot to us. You guys know that I don't run ads or sponsorships on these shows. And so the only way it grows is if you guys share it. So I always ask you a couple favors at the end of every episode. If you know somebody else who would like to be a part of these conversations, walk into the short-term rental game with their eyes wide open. That's our ultimate goal. Share the show. Those things help us and hopefully help other people get into this game. And with talking about the good, the bad, the ugly. And if you have more than 30 seconds, whatever platform you're watching or listening on, like it, review it. Those things help us and give us a thumbs up on those platforms. And then the final, most important thing that I ask you guys at the end of every episode is pick that one thing you can do today, start building that life you don't want to take a vacation from. Cheers, my friends.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Vacation Rental Revolution podcast. Share this with other people you think need to hear about it. And don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Hey Grace, is there a website? Yes! For more amazing content and expert advice, visit Vodacy.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode.